So while I wait for a video to upload to my main channel, I want to talk about something that I watched tonight, and it's making news. So, and rightfully so. John Oliver talked about WWE last night and some horrible, horrible things about WWE. That wrestlers are considered independent contractors. That means that WWE doesn't have certain legal responsibilities for them, and argues, well, they're not really employees. At the same time, they're signed under exclusive contracts, and he went into some of the horrible things that have happened, but he didn't really get into depth. And this is the thing. So he talked a lot about the WWE things that have happened, and how they basically want to make sure they're not legally responsible for anything. That if you die in the ring, it's your own fault. If it was a stunt we told you to perform, still your own fault. What's funny is, and sad at the same time, is that people talk about how it's fake, and they'll bring up, well, it's fake, it's fake. It's not fake enough. There are wrestlers who come out where they can't walk. They need hip replacements, and as soon as you get a hip replacement, well, you can never wrestle again. So, whenever I hear people talking about, do you think Hulk Hogan will wrestle again? I think he had a hip replacement, he can't. That's just the rule. Your hip's not strong enough. You can't. Their backs, they end up with their necks all fused together. It is brutal, and even though the result in the ring may be predetermined, it's hard. And there have been plenty of athletes from football, from different walks of life, who all jacked up, and they're like, yeah, I can do that. And they go to the performance center and they last like 4 hours, and they're like, I'm not doing this. Because you learn to fall down, and it is not easy, and it's really, really tough. Learning to run the ropes properly is really tough. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Now, for the guys who are working the indies, I have nothing but respect for guys working the indies. I really enjoy going to indie shows locally when I can, because it is enjoyable to support their art. And these are guys who are doing it to entertain mostly kids. This is mostly for kids. There are shows that are not for kids, and I've talked about that not that long ago either. But it's a difficult industry, because if you want to make real money, you have to go to WWE mostly. That's changed, and good, because Cody Rhodes has kind of shown that you can, if you're smart, and if you do it right, you can make a really good living without the WWE restrictions. So for wrestlers who you see on ROH, and ROH I highly recommend, it's great wrestling. I try to see it when I can. When hockey season's over, I can watch ROH a ton. I'll start recording it and really getting into it again, because there's some really good stuff on there. Whether it's the Briscoes, Jay Lethal, any of the big names that they have, and then even the smaller ones, pretty good guys. And really, there's some great stuff there. But these guys are not owned by ROH, and they're still able to wrestle for other companies and make a few extra bucks. The one thing that they brought up on John Oliver tonight, and I don't understand why this isn't a thing, is the idea of an off season. The idea that these guys, and he said wrestling 200 nights a year, and I thought it's more than that. There are if they end the brand split, it could go back to 300. The other thing that I found really jaw-dropping is that, according to the paperwork they had on that show, they currently employ 215 superstars. So that would be women wrestlers, male wrestlers. That's your SmackDown, Raw, NXT, NXT UK. Like, basically what's happened is, since the WWE Network came in, they've kind of gone global. So they've started a show in the UK, and what it feels like they're trying to do is they're trying to suffocate the scene over there too. So they'll have UK tapings for the NXT show, and then in between, some of these wrestlers can't do anything else because they're under contract with WWE. So they can't go out there and make a few extra bucks that they otherwise would be able to make. It is a brutal industry. Jesse the Body Ventura tried unionizing it. They mentioned that in the John Oliver piece last night. The part they didn't talk about, and Jesse's been very outspoken on this, was that he talked about it in the locker room. Hulk Hogan heard him say it, and understood that if the wrestlers unionized, well, Hulk Hogan making $6 million compared to the 100 grand these other guys are making, well, that's not going to work anymore in a union. So because Hogan he's the top guy. He goes to Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon chewed Jesse Ventura out for suggesting it, and none of the wrestlers stood up for themselves. So Jesse Ventura was stuck saying, okay, so I guess you guys don't care. And he didn't feel overly bad for the wrestlers from that point. But there are an alarming number of wrestlers who pass away, and they pass away early. And it's a pattern that I think they're trying to change, but they're trying to change it without really changing the way the contracts work and really changing the way the doctors work. I think there's still wrestlers being encouraged to work through concussions and coming back too early. I've seen wrestlers get hurt in the ring, and I think, okay, now that legit hurt, he shouldn't be in the ring, and they let the match go. And you'll hear the announcers like, I don't know how he's still in the ring, and all I can think is, he shouldn't be in the ring. They shouldn't be in there right now. There should be a doctor putting a stop to this. Because fake or not, some of those headshots are real, and sometimes you get your hands up in the way. Famously, Jake the Snake Roberts talked about his feud with Ricky Steamboat. And of course, Jake the Snake's finisher was the DDT, which is brutal. The DDT is brutal, and sadly, in today's wrestling, they've made the DDT just another move, which is too bad because it was the most brutally effective maneuver in the history of wrestling when Jake the Snake Roberts brought it into the arena. And now just everybody does it, and it doesn't mean anything. And now they've got spike DDTs and off the rope DDTs, and none of it matters. It's just that's a DDT, whatever. It doesn't matter. So he is going over the match with Ricky Steamboat, and I'm telling this story more for the people who say, oh, it's just fake. So he says to Ricky, he goes, okay, now, we're going to go outside the ring. And Ricky said, okay, when you got me outside the ring, I need you to DDT me onto the floor. And Jake's like, I could kill you. And Ricky's response was, it's okay, I'm going to block it. So I'll get my hands out and I'll block it. So Jake the Snake's like, okay, if you're sure, but this move can kill you if you do it wrong. And you're going to be on a concrete floor. So, oh God. So during, I believe it was Saturday night's main event, sure enough, Jake the Snake gives him a DDT onto the floor, and Ricky wasn't able to block it in time. So Jake the Snake is stuck now with a wrestler who's dead weight. With a wrestler who has now been face planted into the floor, into the concrete floor, and he's out. So you can see in footage from the match that Jake is having a really hard time picking the guy up and rolling him into the ring, because in wrestling usually the guy's helping you move him into the ring and helping you pick him up. Ricky was out. And this kind of thing happens, and it happens all the time. And the fact these guys don't have health coverage because they're independent contractors, it's not right. And I'm torn because, this week is WrestleMania. Tomorrow I'm going to do a prediction video on WrestleMania and who I think is going to win at WrestleMania. And I'm genuinely excited. And the only comparable I can think of, because I know it's hypocritical, I'm well aware it's hypocritical, it's like FIFA. People can agree that FIFA is a horrible corporation run by some horrible people. And yet when the World Cup rolls around, gosh darn it, we're going to sit and watch it, and we're going to love every minute of it. And Mania kind of has that as well. And even, this shirt, I got this last week. This is a Matt Hardy shirt. And I bought 2 Matt Hardy shirts that were discontinued for $10 each. Because, seriously, you discontinued Matt Hardy shirts? Okay. So he went back to the Hardy Boys gimmick. That's dumb. The Delete gimmick, the whole woken Matt Hardy is so much more interesting and entertaining than anything the Hardy Boys are going to do with their 15 millionth reunion, but okay. And it is hypocritical. And that's why I want AEW to succeed. Now, I do think WWE has the money to block a lot of wrestlers from going to AEW. I think there's a lot of guys in that company right now that are looking at what Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks are building and saying, wow, because this is a company made by wrestlers for wrestlers. And WWE is not. It's a major corporation. And wrestlers can tell a really good story. There are some really good stories that have been told in the wrestling ring. There have also been some really crappy ones. And I know almost any time WWE tries to be funny, it fails miserably. And when I see them failing miserably to be funny, all I can think is, whatever the writers are getting paid, it's probably too much. They can't write anything funny. And it's painful. And yet some of these segments that were just painfully unfunny 20 years ago Yeah, they still truck them out because they still think they were really funny back then. I'm talking about the Attitude Era. There was lots of stuff in the Attitude Era that just wasn't funny. And they've got the new deal with Fox, so SmackDown's gonna be this big show now, and they're gonna make it the A show with Raw. They're gonna even it out. But amid rumors that Ronda Rousey might leave, and I'll believe it when I see it, because Brock Lesnar's been leaving since he came back, and he still hasn't left. I don't think he's leaving. I don't think he's going to lose to Seth Rollins this week. But it is a company, it is an entity that employs a lot of people, and yet it works in a way that makes it harder, not just to live longer, but to live a better life. So if you wrestle 200 matches a year, and if 95% of your matches go off without a hitch, that's 10 that something happened. And if half the time you're the one that gets hurt and half the time it's your opponent, that's 5 times a year you're getting hurt. And then the other thing they brought up in the John Oliver piece, which is true, is that if you get hurt in wrestling, your spot's gone. So if you're like, man, I'm out for 6 months, hey, your spot's gone. Unless you are one of the really big names that they were planning on pushing to the stratosphere, like a Roman Reigns, or Brock Lesnar himself, or Seth Rollins on some level as well. Unless you're one of the big names, yeah, you that could be the end of your career. If Mojo Rawley, after 6 weeks of talking to a mirror, goes into the ring and blows his ACL, he's done. They won't let him go until his ACL's healed, but he's never going to be back on TV again. Unless they need to keep him to get Rob Gronkowski to stay in the company, in which case, yeah, they'll keep him around. It's just, I think they've had a monopoly for 20 years, ever since WCW went out of business. WCW tried too hard to be on the wrestlers' side and let the wrestlers run the show a little too much. And they let, I think in some cases, the wrong guys run the show. The funny thing is, towards the very end of WCW, I thought there was some stuff going on there that I thought could be fun. They had the New Blood going, which I thought, this could be a fun little stable, and they had some fun stuff going on. But at that point, they were losing money, and TBS was being sold to AOL, and AOL wanted nothing to do with wrestling, and that was it. It was too bad that they shuttered the doors. I understand why there's people who were glad that the doors closed on WCW. I think it was horrible for the business because it has allowed WWE to become this massive thing. And it means that for an upstart like AEW, or even for an established company like ROH, and ROH is, I can't talk up ROH enough. The wrestling's great. And it shows, like, when you watch some of these wrestlers fight and you remember them from WWE and you're like, why weren't they letting them do this? That move. They never let them do that move. And part of what drives me nuts with watching WWE is that they get some really hot independent wrestlers, got all these really cool moves they do, and they tell them not to do them. And they say, no, we have a way that we wrestle here. You got to learn the rest holds. You got to learn to run the ropes the way we do. You got to learn to do things the way we do it. So it's like they take what's unique and what makes the person special, and they take it away. And then and then when that wrestler goes out in the ring and fails to connect with the audience because they took away what made them unique, they go, this guy isn't all that special after all. See, it's another indie darling that just can't cut it here, and then he gets released from the company as damaged goods. I don't get it. I really don't get it. One prime example, I think, if you get a chance to watch ROH, would be Evan Bourne, and I'm trying to remember his name in ROH, but his matches are fantastic. And when he was in WWE, he had a couple of really interesting high-flying maneuvers he'd do. But for the most part, it was the same lucha-style moveset that you'd see Rey Mysterio doing. Although Rey Mysterio, if you see him wrestle in Mexico, you'll see him do stuff he wouldn't do in WWE. It's this giant corporation that really honestly needs some kind of competition. And if that competition offers medical, and if they take care of the wrestlers and treat them like employees. One of the funny things I saw somebody say on one of the wrestling sites, oh yeah, like they'd take a pay cut so they could get medical benefits. Yes. Because in the U.S. without medical benefits, you can owe tens and tens of thousands of dollars for medical procedures. So yes, for medical benefits, they would absolutely, especially if those benefits continue after they're done with the company, if there's some kind of a pension plan, absolutely, I would think wrestlers would take less money if they knew it was going to take care of them long term. And not only that, but if a company acknowledges we need an off season, or not even that, but just say, okay, we're going to have Raw and SmackDown. We're not going to have any house shows this month. Now, wrestlers are going to lose money from not going to house shows, but you might have wrestlers with longer careers and maybe longer lives. And that's really something they should be protecting and taking care of. And it doesn't feel like they are. It feels like this generation of wrestlers has more knowledge than the last one. And that maybe some of these guys will live to be in their 70s and 80s. I would certainly hope so. But they're still working the brutal schedules, and I still see guys in the ring that I'm thinking, there's no way he's okay right now. There's no way she's okay right now. Because you hear about what the injury is, and then 2 weeks later they're in the ring, and you're thinking, it takes longer than 2 weeks to recover from that. So either there was a lie in what they had, or the doctors cleared them before they should have. And considering the track record that the company has of overlooking injuries and thinking, well, that's an injury, but it's not a big deal. They can work through it. I kind of lean towards the idea that maybe they're still fudging the numbers a little bit. So that's the torture you go through as a wrestling fan. It is something that's turned me away from the product before. I've gone months and months and months without watching it, in part because of this kind of thing. But I always get pulled back because there's some entertainment to it, and it's got something to it that nothing else offers. And even John Oliver, in the bit that he had last night, he admitted there are some really great moments in a WWE ring that are iconic and are fantastic. He mentioned the Steve Austin beer bath. That is still one of the greatest moments ever. Nobody got hurt in that either. And it really is. It's one of the greatest moments ever. And it's a moment that genuinely was funny. By all accounts, it was genuinely funny. A guy coming out in a beer truck and spraying them with like a fire hose full of beer. That's funny. You could do that in any sport, it would still be funny. You see that in football. I'm surprised Budweiser hasn't done that after a Super Bowl. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. If you're a fan of wrestling, do you feel conflicted at any point in time because you know how the company treats the wrestlers? Are you like me, that you follow a lot of wrestlers that are no longer employed with WWE and see how they're doing? And in some cases, I have sent messages on social media to say, hey, you're doing some great work. I hope all's going well, because when you're in the big company and under the bright lights, you're going to get a lot of attention, and when you're kind of cast aside. And there are some wrestlers who've been let go that I still don't understand why they're not still with the company. Hello, Damian Sandow. But with that being said, it's Vince's right to run it however he'd like, and it would be nice to see somebody compete with him. It's going to require a lot of money. It's going to require probably a lot of time. But the only way that they're actually going to treat wrestlers like their employees and give them some kind of health benefits, which, yes, would probably drop their wages, but it would increase WWE's costs, let's be honest, right? The only way that's going to happen is through competition, and hopefully wrestlers at some point standing up for themselves and saying, this can't continue. We need to be protected, because there are people who I still think are wrestling injured right now, that I watch wrestling shows right now and I go, I don't think that person's right. So there's another challenge. Who do you think right now that you see on TV is probably wrestling who shouldn't be? And the fact that so many wrestlers retweeted out the video of John Oliver from last night, what does that say for the company? And the fact the company will not say anything. They will never say anything. They won't acknowledge it. That's not a thing. I think my favorite comment on a Wrestling Rumors website that I check out regularly was they mentioned that one of the recent storylines was that the Authority comes out and they're like, our ratings are in the tank, so the fans are in charge. And it was WWE fans. WWE fans announced they want the wrestlers to have a union. And the Authority says, yeah, not so fast. No. But they need it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, Again, I'll do the WrestleMania predictions tomorrow, and yes, I'm conflicted, and I wanted to do this video first. So I'll watch parts of Mania. It's supposed to be 8 hours. Nothing's fun for 8 hours. Nothing. That's 2 Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, unabridged, the extended edition. Nobody wants to watch that once, much less twice. I have no idea why it's 8 hours, so I'm not watching the whole thing. I may do a live stream on this channel during it. I'm not watching the whole thing. That's not happening. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.